If you've ever found yourself waiting for a text, replaying conversations, or wondering why someone can't just decide about you, this video is for you. Because the truth is, the most painful relationships aren't the ones that end, they're the ones that never fully begin. If someone wanted to commit, you wouldn't feel this confused, this tired, or this stuck. Today, I'm going to show you why waiting is costing you more than leaving, what's really keeping you attached, and the one shift that changes everything. Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear could save you years of emotional exhaustion. Confusion feels like a problem you need to solve, but in dating, confusion is often the answer itself. When someone truly wants to be with you, they don't create fog. They don't leave you replaying conversations, decoding emojis, or wondering where you stand. Clarity doesn't require effort to understand. It's felt. You know when someone is invested because their actions line up, their words are consistent, and their presence in your life feels stable rather than sporadic. We tend to believe that if we just wait a little longer, say the right thing, or prove our value a bit more, the uncertainty will resolve itself. But that belief quietly shifts responsibility onto you for something that isn't yours to fix. Commitment isn't a reward you earn through patience, loyalty, or emotional labor. It's a choice someone makes when they are sure. And when someone is sure, you don't have to chase certainty. It arrives naturally. Mixed signals often get romanticized as complexity or fear of vulnerability. We tell ourselves they're just scared or they've been hurt before, as if that justifies the ongoing ambiguity. But here's the truth, even people with fears and past wounds still show up clearly when they don't want to lose you. They may move slowly, but they don't move inconsistently. They don't disappear, reappear, and expect you to stay emotionally available in the gaps. Waiting for someone's potential can feel hopeful, but it comes at a cost. Potential lives in the future, while your life is happening right now. Every day you spend emotionally invested in someone who won't commit is a day you're putting your own needs on hold. Over time, this erodes self-worth. You start questioning your value, lowering your standards, and accepting less than you want, not because you don't deserve more, but because you're tired of not knowing. What makes this pattern so painful is that it often feels safer to stay confused than to face a clear answer you don't like. Confusion keeps the door open. It allows you to imagine outcomes that haven't been denied yet. But clarity, even when it hurts, gives you something far more powerful: choice. When you accept that mixed signals are a signal, you reclaim your agency. You stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. If someone truly sees a future with you, you won't be left wondering where you fit into their life. You won't need reassurance on repeats. You won't feel like you're constantly auditioning for a role you're already playing. Love that's right doesn't feel like a question mark. It feels like a sentence with a period. So if you're feeling confused, don't rush to explain it away. Listen to it. Confusion is your intuition asking you to pay attention. And when you finally accept that mixed signals are no signal at all, you free yourself from waiting rooms that were never meant to be permanent. Most people don't stay in uncommitted relationships because they're deeply in love. They stay because leaving feels more frightening than staying. Starting over means facing uncertainty, loneliness, and the uncomfortable silence that comes when someone is no longer there to text or think about. Even if the relationship isn't giving you what you need, it's familiar. And familiarity can feel safer than the unknown, even when it hurts. There's also the quiet hope that things will change. Not because the person has shown consistent signs of growth, but because you've seen flashes of who they could be. A good week, a meaningful conversation, a moment of vulnerability that makes you think, this is it. This is the turning point. Hope keeps you emotionally invested in a future that hasn't been promised. And the more time you invest, the harder it becomes to walk away, because leaving would mean admitting that the future you imagined may never arrive. Then there's ego attachment, which is far more powerful than we like to admit. Part of you wants to believe that if you just love better, communicate better, or stay patient long enough, you'll be the one who finally inspires them to commit. This isn't about love, it's about identity. It's about wanting to be the exception, the person who changed them, the proof that you were worth it. The danger is that your self-worth slowly becomes tied to their transformation rather than your own happiness. What makes this especially tricky is that staying can feel noble. You tell yourself you're loyal, understanding, compassionate, and those qualities are real and valuable. But when they're used to justify accepting emotional inconsistency, they stop being strengths and start becoming self-abandonment. Love doesn't require you to shrink your needs or wait indefinitely for someone else to rise to the occasion. There's also the fear of confronting the truth. Leaving means facing the possibility that you invested time, energy, and emotion into something that couldn't meet you where you are, that can feel like failure, even though it isn't. In reality, staying too long in the wrong situation is what delays the life you want to be living. When you step back and look honestly, you may realize that what's keeping you there isn't the relationship itself, but what it protects you from feeling. Ending it would force you to grieve, to be alone for a while, to rebuild your sense of self without them at the center. Staying lets you postpone that discomfort, even if it means living in emotional limbo. The moment you recognize these patterns, something shifts. You stop judging yourself and start understanding yourself. And from that place of self-awareness, real choice becomes possible. Not a choice driven by fear or hope or ego, but a choice rooted in self-respect. Because when you stay for the wrong reasons, you're not protecting love. You're postponing the chance to experience it fully. Waiting can feel passive, almost harmless. You're not ending things. You're not making a dramatic decision. You're just giving it a little more time. But what often goes unnoticed is that waiting has a cost, and it's usually far higher than leaving. It doesn't announce itself all at once. It drains you slowly, quietly, in ways that only become clear when you look back and realize how much of yourself you've given away. The first thing waiting takes from you is time. Not just calendar time, but lifetime. Months turn into years of almost, maybe, and let's see. During that time, you're emotionally unavailable to anything else, even if you're technically single. Your heart is already occupied. You may tell yourself you're being patient, but patience only makes sense when there's movement. Without progress, patience becomes postponement of the life you want. Then there's the emotional energy it consumes. Being with someone who won't commit keeps your nervous system on high alert. You're constantly monitoring their tone, their availability, their level of interest. Every text carries weight. Every silence feels personal. This kind of emotional hypervigilance is exhausting. Over time, it dulls your joy and makes even small interactions feel heavy. You start your day already tired, not because of what's happening, but because of what might happen. What hurts most is what you don't see, the opportunities quietly passing you by. While you're emotionally tied to someone who's unsure, you're unavailable to people who would show up clearly and consistently, not because they don't exist, but because you're not open to them. You may miss chances to build something real with someone who doesn't hesitate, someone for whom commitment isn't a negotiation. Waiting keeps you anchored to one person while life continues moving forward without you. This is why waiting often functions like a hidden breakup. The relationship is ending in slow motion. There's no clear goodbye, no closure, no moment you can point to and say, that's when it ended. Instead, it fades through unmet needs, repeated disappointments, and conversations that go nowhere. By the time it innerly collapses, you're already depleted, grieving something that stopped nourishing you long ago. Leaving, on the other hand, feels painful up front, but honest. Waiting spreads the pain out over time, making it harder to detect and easier to justify. You tell yourself you're avoiding heartbreak, when in reality you're experiencing it in installments. Each day you stay, you're paying emotional interest on a relationship that isn't investing back. The shift happens when you realize that choosing to leave isn't giving up. It's opting out of a slow erosion of self. You stop measuring loss by what you walk away from and start measuring it by what you reclaim, your time, your energy, your openness to something better. And when you finally see waiting for what it is, you understand that the real risk was never leaving too soon. It was staying too long. When you've been waiting for someone to commit, it's tempting to believe the solution is to have one final conversation, to ask the right question in the right way, or to deliver an ultimatum that finally forces clarity. But ultimatums don't create desire, they only create pressure, and pressure might produce short-term compliance. But it rarely produces genuine commitment. The real shift isn't about demanding more, it's about expecting more from the start. Instead of chasing clarity through conversations, start observing behavior. Words are easy to adjust in the moment. Behavior is not. How consistently do they show up? Do they make plans and follow through? Do they integrate you into their life or keep you compartmentalized? When someone truly wants to be with you, you don't have to interrogate their intentions. Their actions answer the question before you ever need to ask it. Setting a standard is an internal decision, not a speech you deliver. It's you deciding what kind of relationship you're available for, and Livy, NG in alignment with that choice. A standard says, I invest where there is consistency, effort, and emotional availability. An ultimatum says, I'll stay if you change. One is rooted in self-respect, the other in hope. Standards don't try to control outcomes, they simply define boundaries. Choosing people who choose you consistently means letting go of the idea that love has to be proven through struggle. Consistency isn't boring, it's secure. It's not about grand gestures or intense chemistry followed by distance. It's about reliability. When someone chooses you, you don't feel like you're competing with their uncertainty. You feel prioritized without having to ask for it. This approach requires restraint, especially if you're used to over-explaining or over-giving. It means resisting the urge to chase when you feel someone pulling away. Not because you're playing games, but because you're paying attention. You're allowing space for their true level of investment to reveal itself. And if they don't step forward, you haven't lost anything. You've gained clarity without sacrificing your dignity. What's powerful about standards is that they remove resentment from the equation. When you stop forcing commitment, you stop feeling bitter about what someone can't give. You meet them where they are and decide honestly whether that place works for you. If it doesn't, you step back, not as punishment, but as alignment. The irony is that this is often when attraction becomes clearer. Not because you're trying to provoke a reaction, but because self-respect is inherently magnetic. And even if it doesn't change their behavior, it changes your experience. You no longer feel trapped in waiting mode. You're grounded, intentional, and open to someone who doesn't need convincing. When you set standards instead of ultimatums, you stop begging for commitment and start building a life that only has room for people who show up willingly. And that shift alone can change everything. Walking away is often misunderstood as a tactic, something you do to make the other person chase you or suddenly realize what they're about to lose. But walking away isn't a strategy for control. It's an act of self-respect. And paradoxically, that's exactly why it's so powerful. Commitment has never come from persuasion. It comes from desire. You cannot argue someone into wanting a future with you, and you shouldn't have to. When you stop trying to convince someone of your value, you remove the pressure that distorts the dynamic. There's no more explaining, justifying, or waiting for them to come around. You simply step back and allow reality to surface. In that space, one of two things happens. Either the person rises to meet you with clarity and effort, or they don't. And both outcomes give you something priceless, the truth. If they step forward, it's not because you cornered them with an ultimatum, but because they felt the absence of your presence and realized they wanted to be in your life. That's where real attraction lives, in choice, not obligation. Respect grows when someone sees that you won't accept half measures or emotional ambiguity. You're not leaving to punish them, you're leaving because you know what you're available for. That distinction changes everything. And if they don't step forward, that's not rejection, it's information. It tells you that the connection was sustained more by your effort than their intention. Walking away reveals what staying often hides. It strips away the illusion that things were almost there and replaces it with clarity. Painful, yes, but clean. And clean pain heals faster than prolonged uncertainty. Freedom is the part people underestimate. When you walk away, you don't just lose someone who couldn't commit. You regain access to yourself. Your energy comes back, your mind quiets, you stop checking your phone with anxiety and start feeling grounded again. You remember what it's like to be chosen without needing to audition. That freedom creates space for joy, for peace, and for someone who doesn't hesitate. The irony is that the more you cling, the less attractive the dynamic becomes. Neediness isn't unattractive because it's weak. It's unattractive because it communicates that you're willing to accept less than you want. Walking away communicates the opposite. It says, I value connection, but not at the expense of myself. That message lands deeply, whether the other person acts on it or not. At the end of the day, the right person doesn't need convincing. They don't need to be persuaded, pressured, or slowly nudged into choosing you. They feel it and they act on it. And when you truly believe that, walking away stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like alignment. Because every time you choose yourself, you move closer to the relationship that chooses you back.